Kia ora and good day to you all. My name is Alan and I'm presenting to you today on some early findings from my research into psychological first aid models used to support social workers working in frontline mental health roles. Now, just before we begin, I should alert you to the fact that not only do I have multiple screens going on around me, which may cause reflections, etc., but hopefully won't interfere with the process or what you're about to receive. But also I'm recovering from a respiratory viral infection, and so my voice is quite hoarse and may not be as clear as it normally would be, but I will attempt to project it in such a way that you do fully hear what I've got to say. So just in keeping with the theme that we're going through today, I would like to engage the cultural tikanga of Aotearoa's Indigenous population, the Māori, and offer up a karakia in Te Reo Māori. So that is a prayer in the Māori language for us to begin. So etu. I te atua manaki tia mātou e tēnei wā kōrero. Hau mai ki a mātou te kaha te ora me te maramatanga. Āmene. Kia ora. So what I just did then is I just gave thanks to the creative force of the universe for bringing us together at this time for this conversation, or these conversations, in search of greater knowledge and understanding that we are sharing, and ask that we have the strength and the wisdom just to be nice to each other during the time that we're together. Now, I hope the glare is not too bad, and we'll kick straight into it because I'm aware we are time limited. So, my research initially focused on assistance given to those who are experiencing trauma in the course of their social work experiences, and then a supplementary question evolved from that around what social workers see as important, in terms of maintaining wellness throughout their journey in the social work arena, shall we say. Now, it became obvious as we went through this that participants put as much value on ongoing support as they did on having appropriate psychological first aid in place for if they were experiencing trauma or high risk experiences. So the research itself is qualitative and it's practitioner based, in that I have been working in this field for since 1990, so that's quite a way back. We were seeking a social worker's point of view on the things that we're talking and we're discussing about. We use semi-structured interviews and thematic analysis to go through and work on that stuff. So the research focus itself was aimed on exploring social worker perceptions in terms of what they felt was there, and in terms of the providing of appropriate psychological first aid following critical incidents, and then ongoing support with wellness for staff in high stress roles. And it's from there that we're picking up and working on stuff today. So now I am going to refer down to my notes a fair bit here as well, because due to the sickness that I've been experiencing, I haven't had time to memorize, shall we say, and as we're not in an arena, I can't have cue cards and bounce around and wave at things, which I would normally do. So utilizing a framework of interviewing from Davidson's 2003 structured analysis technique, which focuses on hearing the narratives of the participants who are asking judgment on them. So, we're talking about them listening to the stories first, then exploring how they feel about it, employing methods of interaction that are intended to elicit honest, well-informed feedback based upon vast lived experience and wide theoretical and organisational knowledge. So to give you an example we had 10 interviewees, 10 participants, and of those people, the shortest time frame in a social work role had been 7 years, and the longest serving social worker, shall we say, had over 30 years of experience. So it's a vastly experienced group of practitioners that we engaged with here. Please excuse my coughing again. So in terms of our interviews, we kicked off asking questions around what their experiences had been, just to give us the narrative of what had occurred during traumatic events or high-risk incidents. And then we went into the feelings around that, the emotions connected with it, what they felt was negative or positive in terms of the support and the processes they went through in terms of their psychological first aid. And then in phase 3, we went on to looking at and this is what I'm sharing with you from this section today. What's required in terms of the ongoing support of a social worker working in the front line, especially in high stress roles, engaged in the day-to-day mahi or work that will will be a major part really of everyday life and work for a social worker. There's much more of the daily grind is the daily grind as opposed to the heightened traumatic, stressful incidences. However, they do both play a part often, and especially in the working life of the group of people that we engaged as participants for this research. So, among the participants' responses were a number of indicators that, things such as understanding your role, having strong team bonds, healthy relationships, both in your work and your private lives, spheres of life, having good supervision, those things were all considered important, but equally came through an understanding that an ability to connect to and anchor yourself with your own cultural roots and ways of being was very, very important for people. So just we'll take the Merriam-Webster online dictionary definition of culture here. Customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group, but also incorporating characteristic features of everyday existence, such as diversions or a way of life shared by people in a place or a time. So that was our definition of culture at this stage of the research. So, for Māori and Pacifica participants, excuse me, clearly having knowledge of your whakapapa, which is your genealogy, your heritage, that was considered to be very important. Being connected to the larger community, and these were things that were seen as giving meaning to your life, and what would be required to keep someone healthy and well, being connected and having the support of your family or your whānau, the village, the ainga, the cultural community. These were seen as really important, and engaging in activities that connected you with them. To take a quote from one of our participants, who is Pacifica, we're part of a culture that's bigger than us as individuals. It's what birthed you and raised you, and you need to give back. But also it keeps you safe and keeps you grounded. For our Māori participants, engagement within token, engagement with things accessed through tikanga or correct protocols around hui and meetings, like starting with a karakia as we did just before. Excuse me, I'm just going to... And engaging in process of mutual introduction known as whakawhanaungatanga, or the hearing of te reo being used and respected. These were important for Māori participants, as was some of, some were engaged in ritualistic activities on a daily basis, such as cleansing with water or prayer, karakia, at the end of the day or when coming out of certain situations. And these were really, really important. And to quote a Māori participant, excuse me, these things help us to remember our place as tangata whenua, people of the land. They embolden us and make us stronger in the mahi, the work that we do. So, for others, the connections to cultural anchors were less around ethnic or traditionally cultural dynamics, and understanding heritage of West comes through from what's considered an important anchor, but this came in different forms, and in some cases it was spiritual or religious kind of heritage stuff that went beyond the sorry. So one participant spoke to, he's a Pākehā New Zealand who proudly identified himself as having Irish heritage, and he'd done some research into that, but had felt that, that was just the past, that was his ancestors. And while he recognised that there were certain traits and behaviours that maybe, as well as genetic stuff, of course, that came through from his genealogy, from his ancestry, he felt way more connected to the Catholic upbringing that he'd had growing up here in Tamaki Makaurau or Auckland, New Zealand. And that's what really connected him. So to take a quote from that gentleman, I sometimes just go and sit in a church when it's quiet, just for the peace of it, and find myself praying, even though I don't usually pray at all. It's calming. Another gentleman would go back to a place where he had grown up, where his family had been since the 1850s, I think, which is it's quite a long time for New Zealand's non-Indigenous population, considering colonisation processes only began here in the 1840s. So, every few months I go back, usually on Friday afternoons, to the main street. It's changed from when I was a kid, but the crowded streets and cultural mix of people and the actual buildings themselves and churches and old banks, they make me feel grounded. He also said it always feels good after that. Like, I know where I come from. It's hard to explain, but it does something for me. So another gentleman talked about music, and this was a really interesting one I found. I go home, and this was a daily routine. I go home and put on headphones, listen to pre-1980 Elton John music. It helps me let go. I think it relates to hearing these songs on the radio as a kid. It takes me back to a time before I knew just how horrible the world can be. Now, these social workers as well are all, work in quite high areas where there's high levels of need and risk. An English social worker who was part of the process, who's lived in New Zealand for quite a long time, said it's what we do in England, have a pint after work, talk through anything that's happened during the day with your colleagues. It's the best way to end the day and close it out. And he talked about the fact that it took him a while to find a team and a group of people that were happy to just stop for a pint after work, because he said it just wasn't a thing that was a natural thing for New Zealanders to do, but for him it was really important. Each of our participants had their own sense of what cultural activities or events help to anchor them in who they are and how they look and feel. And we got some really interesting, I'm going to take you through some quotes here, understanding of why these things were important, especially when you're working as a social worker in a very diverse, multi-ethnic space. You've got to know where you come from and be comfortable with that before you can give proper respect to other cultures. These are all direct quotes. It makes me more willing or able to work across cultures, which we do. And it builds confidence in my understanding and skill level, which makes me feel better in terms of my well-being. So, and then I take us to this picture here. So we are reaching the time frame, unfortunately. We were supposed to close it out. So, this is a social worker from Aotearoa, New Zealand, reaching out and touching an ancient traditional anchor stone. So, to me, that image really sums up what we're talking about here. And, the image in the background, the picture behind him actually says, "I am," which again, very much sums up the stuff that we're talking about here. Excuse me. where the being able to anchor yourself, being able to connect to that stuff, to your culture, be that something that goes way, way back in terms of the traditional cultures that live here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, or those of us who didn't for a long time recognize that we had an ancient culture. And even then, because of the disconnection, the travel across the world to another space, don't readily recognize that culture or connect with it, but are connected now to the things that are here in Aotearoa, in the space that we're living in, with the genealogy that we have in Aotearoa. These are important things, very, very valuable things. And while I could, there is another slide that's got references in it, and we could pop through to that. I think that this image here just really sums up exactly what we're talking about today, being able to reach out and touch it and connect with it. So on that note, a minute and a half longer than I think we were supposed to do for these presentations, I will conclude here. I would just say, I guess, thank you very much for listening. I hope it's been helpful or educational, or that some knowledge has been shared somewhere, and perhaps it's only just reinforced stuff you already knew, but hey, that's fine too. So anyway, thank you very much. God bless. Ka kite anō. Amen.